Okay, so we finished yesterday chapter 10. And this was the three chapters that explained the two levels of Tshuva Tato and Tshuva Law. Now let's go to the workbook before we start 11 and do the review. We got two more chapters to go, 11 and 12. And hopefully we'll finish it before Yontiv, so we'll have the complete. Thank you very much. So the questions for chapter let's start with chapter 8. I think that's as far as we went. We just did till chapter 7. Is that correct? You should have your notes. How far did you go? I think until chapter 7. Okay, so now we're in chapter 8, page 6. How does Tshuva Tita evoke Yud Midas Harachim? How does our Tshuva Tita arouse Hashem Yud Midas Harachim?
When you consider like how low Hashem was fallen, and yeah, we have sympathy, I guess, for our neshama, and then down here, not around this position.
Right. So this is based on the principle known as Midah Keneged Midah, measure for measure. That's in the Gemara language. In the language of Chassidus and Zohar, it's Esrosa de la Tata brings Esrosa de la Eva. That when we do something down here, that's called an awakening from below, will bring a similar reaction from above. So if I have compassion for my neshama or for the Shekhinah that went into Golus, then I evoke Hashem's compassion, which is Yud Midas Harachim. Question number 2. Why, or really how, are Averos forgiven through Yud Midas Harachim? I guess there's 2 questions to this, which maybe I didn't spell out in the question. One question is, what does it mean that once we arouse Hashem's attributes of mercy, thank you very much, then we're forgiven? And second of all, the question about how. Being that Avera means I cause a defect, I cause damage, and in the spiritual realm or in my neshama, so how does certain attributes of mercy change that?
I feel like the breaking attributes mercy comes from a level higher than Shem Havaya, and therefore the lower can't nurture to offer.
Right. This is the mushal that we had before with the dried out river or the dried out well. Now, when there's no water, you dig deeper, and then that comes and fills up the gap. So the Shem Havaya has been defected by our Averis. Then we go deeper into Yud Midas Harachim, and especially considering another thing that Yud Midas Harachim is the or in sub is the infinite light of Hashem. Infinite means there's no limitations. So Hashem, we can't change the past. Whatever happened, happened. But that's part of the limitations of our world. Hashem is infinite, and therefore he could change the past. But on a deeper level, what we said before, that when you go to the infinite light, that light shines, it'll fill all the gaps, it'll correct all the damage, it'll smooth out all the defects, and everything will be straightened out because we went deeper. And how did we get there? Through us evoking mercy on our neshama. What's the difference between Tshuva Tata and Tshuva Law? How would you put it in one sentence? In a simple way?
with God is like coming back to the Shem after like being an Avera being far from him, and to be like even the relationship.
Right. I'd add another little point. Tshuva Tata is about removing barriers between me and Hashem. Because all the Mishalim the Alter Rebbe gave with blowing, with the rope, is about something that's blocking and a barrier. Avera is a barrier between me and Hashem. So Tshuva Tata is removing the barriers, and now that the barriers are removed, the connection, comes together. It's like the sun shines, then clouds come, very thick clouds, and it gets dark. When you remove the clouds, it's light again. What? We're doing page 6 in the questions. This Perek Ches. Using the more modern technology example is you have Wi-Fi and there's something going on, you sometimes a lot of noise or other things, and it blocks it, there's no connection. You can't see the images, you can't hear the voice, and therefore you need to make sure the connection is out of the way. Tshuva law is, even though we're connected, but this is a much deeper connection. Yeah. So the main point of Perek Ches is the difference between Tshuva Tata and Tshuva law. That Tshuva law means deepening the connection to Hashem. Let's see what we wrote in the beginning. If I'm consistent, Tshuva Tata comes first. It takes down the barrier between me and Hashem. Tshuva law follows. Its goal is to deepen the connection. That's it. It's very important to bring it down to the shortest sentence and word that you could find. That's how you remember it better. Okay, now we go to chapter 9. So chapter 9, no, is there any terms here? This is page 6. So let's see, page 7. Are there any terms here? I know you're looking at the numbers, they're not in order. And the reason they're not in order because this is really part of a bigger booklet that was taken apart. So it looks good. So I really can't say there's the page number, I have to tell you the chapter. This is chapter 8, and we're doing page 7. So yeah. What is the term umka deliba? It's Aramaic, but it's very similar to Hebrew. The umka deliba. Yeah. Umka is like Hebrew omek, which means deep. And liba is like the Hebrew word leib, which means the heart, or the depth of the heart. Number 2 is a term that's used quite often, that's why I put it in. It's also Aramaic, and this is referring to the advantage of someone does tshuva over someone who doesn't need to do tshuva because they're already a tzaddik. Ru'usa deliba sagi ubechela sagi. So the word sagi in Aramaic means more or a lot. So a person does tshuva, their love and their emotions are so much stronger, more intense, and the energy is more intense. Chela is energy. Bina, what does Bina mean? Ben Yud K, what does that mean? Secret code. What? Right, but why is it Ben Yud K? What?
Child of
Right, Bina is Ben Yudke because Bina is the part of the brain that produces the children, which are the emotions. Yeah. Which word? Yeah. Ru'usa, the liba. Rusa would be like the Hebrew word ratzin, desire. The desire of the heart is much stronger. Ubechela means strength or energy. The energy is much stronger. Okay, now we'll go to Perek Tes, 2 questions. How is Bina connected to Tshuva Ilah? Right. Because true law, that deeper connection to Hashem, is accomplished through learning Torah, and Torah is knowledge, is understanding, and that's Bina. But because it has to be not just learning Torah, but learning Torah with love and fear of Hashem, it has to be learning Torah the proper way. So therefore, it's Bina. It's the learning, but with the emotion, with the child, meaning with the love and fear of Hashem. What is the main point of Perek Tes? So we go back to the beginning on page 3. That Tshuva is, what the definition of Tshuva is, deepening the connection with Hashem, and it's accomplished through Torah study and meditating on the greatness of Hashem through the intellect. And the second point is that, and it's not a second point, but also the deepening our connection with Hashem leads to a desire for an all-encompassing bond with Hashem. They want to embrace Hashem through thought, through speech, through action, intellect, emotion, every part of us. So this we have on the next page when we talk about the terms. That's why the questions are so short, because we have the other things in the terms. What is this dapkus rucha berucha? Again, Aramaic. You know how you recognize an Aramaic word? What? Right. If there's an aleph at the end, it's usually Aramaic. If there's a hey at the end, it's Hebrew. Right. The cleaving and the merging of spirit to spirit. Number 2, the chilu urechimu. So I don't know if I spelled it out when we were learning the Perek, but the chilu is the Aramaic word for yira, for fear of Hashem, and rechimu means love for Hashem. This is also very common in Maimorim, or Chassidus, the chilu urechimu. Number 3 is the chilu urechimu sichlium. Love and fear. And what does that mean? That was a tough one, but
like in your talked about when you think about it, but you don't actually feel you.
So probably in this chapter, there is such a thing that's also in the beginning of time in chapter 17. But this probably, I remember we said it's like the mother that crouches over the chickens, which means there is emotion, but the intellect hovers over it. It means you feel the intellect, you feel the seichel, and therefore it's a deeper kind of emotion. And I told you then was that this would be like the kind of emotion that it looks on the outside like it's cold, like the intellect, but really it's just deep, not cold. Like the love we have for ourselves is the strongest love, the deepest love, more than anyone else. And yet at the same time, there's no fiery storm. Not because of a lack of love, but because it's much deeper, just the opposite. It's so much one with me. There's a mashal. I know the mashal's from a rebel, it's from a chassid, but it's a famous mashal that's always used. That imagine a poor person who never had a good meal in his life gets invited to a meal by the Mr. Rich Man in town, sits down by the table, and they put down steak. I don't know, you'll tell me what else should be on the menu. Like the best food you could imagine. The man, his eyes are bulging, his face is red, his mouth is watering, like he never saw this in his life, and that he can actually eat it. And he takes his fork and his spoon, and he's like almost, attacking it. He never had this in his life. Then you turn around and you look at the owner of the house, the rich man. He's sitting by the table calmly, something around over here, something dirty, it's a light, that's it. So who's more passionate about the food, the rich man or the poor man? What?
Poor man.
The poor man is more passionate. Try something, and you walk in and you say, sorry, for whatever reason, you can't have this food, we're going to take it away from you, and you can't have it. Okay, what does he do? He goes into his bag, pulls out an old piece of bread, 3-week-old piece of herring, some other things that he has, and he sits down and eats his regular meal. The rich man is not going to eat that. He'll only eat something that are according to his standard. He won't be able to handle eating something like that. So that appears to be that the rich man is more connected to the food than the poor man. So why is it when the poor person's eating, he's so passionate, and the rich man is eating, he's so calm? Right. By the rich man, he's so used to this pleasure, it became part of him. And because it became part of him, therefore there's no excitement, there's no fire. Not necessarily because it doesn't mean anything to him anymore. On the contrary, it means more to him than to the other person. The other person, it's outside of him, like two separate things, so there's a fire. By the way, one of the things this could be related to is sometimes people who are from for a long time starts feeling like, when I first got involved, I had such passion. I was so excited. It was such fire. I guess I'm going downhill. And you beat yourself up. Why am I going downhill? What do I do? The truth is, very often, it could be that you're not going downhill. On the contrary, now it's become so much part of me that therefore it doesn't have that fire. Just the opposite. So what's the Eitzah? But you still want the fire. How do you get the fire? By the way, the same thing could be, get to a second, the same thing could be in a marriage. People are married to each other. They're not fighting, there's no argument, they're getting along, but somehow it's not that same fire and passion that they had when they first met, when they first started. What do you want to say?
So my brain says learn something either new or in a new way or through new eyes. Same with a relationship.
Your brain is doing pretty good. Maybe it's just Friday morning, but it's doing good. So the answer is newness. Yes. Taking things to new heights, learning something new, getting involved in new avodah. When I do something new, it brings a certain excitement, a certain fire, a certain pleasure. Things that only because it's new. Again, if it's new, then I can't say I'm one with it. It's something new. And then when I reach that level, whatever new step in avodah that I took becomes part of me, then I move ahead to something new. But the newness is what brings the excitement. And could be this is also connected to the fact that Yom Tov is a mitzvah, the samachta b'chagecha, to be happy. And it says that the man of the house has an obligation to make everybody in the house happy. And one of the things that it says in Shulchan Aruch that he should see to that his wife should buy something new for Yom Tov. Why does that have to be something new? You can take it to the tailor and stitch up whatever needs to be stitched up. The answer is no, because simcha comes from something new. And I think I don't have to give a lot of lectures on this. Everybody knows that personal feeling when you have something new and there's something new going on. There's a certain thrill, a certain excitement. I'm not saying excitement like when you're jumping out of a plane, but a certain thrill, a certain pleasure that you don't feel, even if it's something good, but it's ongoing. That's why there's a halacha by Sheva brachas. Chassan and Kala for 7 days have to have Sheva brachas. But you don't make the brachas only if there's a new person there. If all the people by the table were at the wedding, or everybody there was already at Sheva brachas, you can't make the brachas. Because it's not the real simcha. Number 4, the Hakir Yisruach Shvelim means that Hashem, he in general, everything he does is like tzedakah, because he's giving life to those that are down, which means a world which is low, a world which is lacking, and Hashem gives this world life. And number 5, that's a term that's used for averos that have anything to do with relationships that are inappropriate according to Torah. So that's 8. Now we'll go to 9. Now we'll go to Perek Yud. What is the difference between tshuva ilah that's associated with Torah and tshuva that's associated with tefillah.
Torah, like from us, like the world, like. Yeah, us reaching out for
I'm watching you make a short stuff, okay?
And then for Tefillah, it's Hashem. One is us going up and one is Hashem.
Okay, now you're safe, okay? Right. Torah, what? You wanna say something, Rivka? Yeah, Torah is Mumayla Lamata, from up down. Because it's basically, like it brings the pasuk, Hashem says, I'll put my words in your mouth. So the Torah is really Hashem's wisdom, which is infinite. And Hashem lowered his wisdom and had it evolve through tzimtzum to the point that it's invested in my mind. So that is from up down. Tefillah, which is me developing love for Hashem, to being drawn to Hashem, is from down up. Like we said, Torah is like Hashem embracing me, and that's the deeper connection we have. And Tefillah is me embracing Hashem, and that's the way we have the deeper connection. So really, both could be tshuva, except one is through Torah and one is through Tefillah. What is the proper time of the day for tshuva tata? What? Midnight, right. Tikkun Chatzos. Years ago, people would get up at midnight. We do it once a year. This Shabbos, we go to shul 1 o'clock in the morning, and we say slichas. Yeah.
Okay, so why isn't it before Shema? There was something that we did before Shema that like actually not in one.
Right. What you want to say is what I'm going to say the next moment, and that is that the Alter Rebbe says. So normally tshuva tata should be right before davening, because davening is the tshuva, and right before tshuva comes tshuva tata. And as we said, even people that are on such a high level that they're already there, they're still almost like you can say infinite levels of what could be a barrier blocking something in kedusha. Things that are more and more subtle, more and more fine, more and more refined. The story that I told you. So tshuva tata should really be right before davening and right after tshuva. The Alter Rebbe says not too many people can do that. It means first to have this broken heart or feel this compassion, and the next second I'm davening and it's supposed to be simcha. Tshuva tata ilah. So therefore the Alter Rebbe says midnight, which means in those days it would be Tikkun Chatzos. We do it by Shema before going to bed. That's what you're referring to. And the Shema before going to bed, that's sort of the tshuva tata time. That's the time to focus on my tshuva of not doing what I did and removing the barriers. And then in the morning is the time for simcha, because we can't switch from this to that in a second. Little children could do that, right? They fall on the floor. They are hysterical. You could think that the worst thing in the world just happened. You can't calm them down. Some kids turn blue in the face, and then you show them a candy, a piece of gum, and all of a sudden, in a second, they're smiling, they're laughing. I guess because children, their emotions are very superficial, so it goes back and forth. But an adult, our feelings have more depth to it. And when it's a deep feeling and you just felt feelings of remorse or feelings of compassion or feelings of I feel crushed, you can't just switch in a second and have a feeling of simcha. So therefore, it's put up in these two times. Maybe I can give you another example, by the way, of what does it mean that there are barriers on a more refined level. In the other class, if you remember, we learned that the Kohen Gadol went to the mikveh 5 times on Yom Kippur. How does that make sense? Once a person goes to the mikveh, they're pure. What's the second time? So obviously it means, it's more of a purification, which means there's certain things spiritually that initially they stand in the way, they block, and then it becomes purified through mikveh. And after that, there are other things that before weren't even noticeable, they weren't even significant. Now it makes a difference on the higher level, and therefore you need a second time mikveh. And then the third and the fourth and the fifth. So there's levels of purification, which means that even for people who are doing tshuva ilah, they still have to go through tshuva tata on their level and then tshuva ilah. On a general scale, 6 days a week are tshuva tata. Shabbos is tshuva ilah for everybody. On the huge scale, all the generations until now were tshuva tata, and now Rabbi is tshuva ilah. What is the main point of chapter 10? Let's go back to the beginning. Main point of chapter 10. We have 3 main points, right? 1 main point turns into 3. No, it's really 1 point. That Tshuva Ilah could either be through Torah, Hashem embracing me, could be through davening, is me embracing Hashem, and then the Shema before going to bed is Tshuva Tata, and that has to come first. That's like sort of a prerequisite, and then you can have Tshuva Ilah. We have 2 words in the vocabulary part. Let's go to page 15. Right. Shabbos, Oisius, Toshev, Enish. What does that mean? Right. The 3 letters that constitute the word Shabbos, they also make up the word Toshev. There's a pasuk Toshev Enish Adaka, which is tshuva. So how do we say Shabbos is tshuva? You're not allowed to cry on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do a shamnu on Shabbos. The answer is it's tshuva ilah. Where am I? Got it? What does aliyah sa'olamus mean? Number 2. Shabbos is aliyah sa'olamus. Close. What? Ascent of the world. Aliyah is a verb, the going up of the world. And on Shabbos, all the world go up, which means our world of Asiya goes up to the level of Yetzirah, not physically, but spiritually. Yetzirah goes to the world of Bria, Bria goes to the world of Atzilus, and Atzilus goes to the higher world. So all the worlds have an elevation on Shabbos. And the fact that we feel elevated is a result of that which is going on, the elevation on Shabbos. And that's why Shabbos is truly lost. It's about going higher. It's not about getting rid of barriers. Okay, I think we're ready to go to chapter 11. So again, davening itself is supposed to be with simcha. You're serving Hashem. You can only serve Hashem with simcha. But the tshuva tata is the prerequisite before we can get that simcha. So now we're doing chapter 11. So let's go back to the Sefer. In this Sefer that we're using, Lessons in Tanya, latest edition, page 279. So that was continuing on the subject that he said that on one hand we have to humble ourselves before we start the davening, and then we continue to daven. I just mentioned this to someone yesterday. If you look in Shulchan Aruch, when it talks about the laws of davening, when it talks about the person who is the shliach tzibur, meaning he leads the davening, the chazan, you find an interesting term. He says the one who davens is called yored l'fnei hateva, the one who goes down to daven by the podium, goes down. You know why? And why, when you read from the Torah, we say we're getting an aliyah, you're going up. And the answer is because the Torah reading is on a platform. You literally go up from the Torah. in shuls years ago, I don't know why they don't do it anymore, but years ago in the shuls, I still remember a shul like that years ago. I'm not from years ago, but just I still remember sitting in a shul like that. That the place where the chazan daven is a little bit lower than the rest of the shul. It has to do with this idea that davening, before we daven, we have to be humble ourselves. So the going down physically is to remind us of humbling ourselves, and then we can do the davening. Maybe it's because now it's all tshuva ilah, so that's why everything is up. Li is believed by hachna, in order for a person to have this humility, which is tshuva tato k'niskol ha'el. The gam masim, and also at the same time to have together. This is already this subject, and he uses the term there's weeping lodged in the heart on one side, and there's joy lodged in the heart on the other side. Alter Rebbe there also talks about how you can have the two things. And Alter Rebbe says, well, the feeling of remorse and the feeling that I feel broken is because of my Nefesh Bahamas and my guf, that they're interfering with my relationship with Hashem. And the joy comes from knowing that, thank God, I have a Hashem and I have Torah, and through Hashem and Torah, I could rise above it. So there are basically two reasons, and therefore a person can have both feelings. In addition to that, with tziruf oida munava b'tochen, there's nochen libe batu b'Hashem yichopetz chesed hu. There's another thing. Once a person davens and asks Hashem for forgiveness, what am I supposed to be thinking? Where do I stand now? Unfortunately, in many religions, people paint a picture of Hashem, and unfortunately, people also think that way when they're studying Torah by not understanding things properly. As if Hashem is angry, he's furious that I did an Avera, and therefore, after doing tshuva, I'm still worried maybe Hashem is still angry and furious, and who knows what's going to happen. So Alter Rebbe says, remember that Hashem is chofetz chesed hu. Hashem is pure kindness. Hashem wants kindness. Hashem wants us to ask for forgiveness and to change. V'chanan v'rachom v'rab l'sloyach. Hashem is gracious. Hashem is merciful, and He's abundant. As the attribute of forgiveness, He has that in abundance, and therefore take it from miyad. As soon as a person asks, "Mechilo slicha meitu is barid," immediately Hashem certainly forgives him. Like it says, page 281, Karev rachamecha mecheb she'en Hashem, with your abounding compassion, erase my sins, kapseini, cleanse me, tahareni, purify me, v'chol avanasai mechei, erase my sins. You should know that believe shum sufik u'spek sveka ba'olam. There's not a doubt, and not even a doubt of a doubt, that Hashem forgives us right away. In other words, if we would just stop and think about Hashem once said that we don't really have the words to describe the love that Hashem has for every Yid. And he said the closest we can get as a mashal, as a metaphor, is the love that parents will have for a one and only child that was born in their old age. In other words, every parent loves their children. But when you have a one and only child, the love is all concentrated on one child. It's much more intense. And imagine parents that for years and years were waiting and hoping and anticipating, and nothing happened, and they couldn't have this child. And then, after many years, like Avraham Avinu, at the age of 100 years old, he had a child. The love for that child is an incredible kind of love. That's the love that Hashem has for every Yid. And what does every Yid mean? Every Yid. No matter where you stand or where you are, even a person does a race. There's a story with a chassid. He was a chassid of a Rebbe called Rabbi Saul of Ruzhin. And he was known that he was a chassid, that he loved his Rebbe. Every chassid not only studies with his Rebbe and hears the Rebbe's teaching, but every chassid has a relationship with his Rebbe like a son to a father, and with a relationship that's totally filled with love. He was known for the love that he had for his Rebbe. And one time he was at home. He didn't live in the Rebbe's city, in a different city, not that far away. And he was overcome with such love and such craving and such feeling that he wants to see his Rebbe. He decided he's going to pick himself up, just go there, just to see the Rebbe. He doesn't have to talk, he doesn't have to hear, just to see the Rebbe and go back home. I have to give a little introduction to the story. This Rebbe, Rabbi Yisrael Rizhin, was in jail, I think, for 2 years. And, the Alter Rebbe was in jail, the Fried Rebbe was in jail. Some of the stories behind these jails were actually Jews who had, were opposed to these tzaddikim, and they were the ones who put in false testimonies, false documents, and all to arrest them. So he was arrested by one of the maskilim, one of these Jews of the Enlightenment movement. He found some false bases, just made up a story, fabricated a story, and got him arrested. So I don't remember that was his name, but just for the sake of the story, we'll call him Yossel the Informer. That's how they called him. You can imagine what people felt about him, that he made the Rebbe be in the jail for so long. So when this chassid came to his Rebbe, and he stood from the distance, waited for the Rebbe to walk, and then he saw him, and his heart was just filled with such feeling of love. The Rebbe, who was a tzaddik, knew exactly why he was here and what he came for. So he stops next to him and says, "You really love me?" He says, "Yes, with all my heart." He said, "I want you to know that the love that you feel for me is insignificant to the love that I feel for every chassid. And you should know that the love that I feel for every chassid is insignificant to the love that Hashem has for Yossel the Informer." For this man who was such a Rasha, Hashem loves him with even a greater love than the love that I have to every single chassid. So basically, if you look at it that way, then all Hashem is waiting for, just say, "I'm sorry." Every someone's like begging us, "Please say I'm sorry, say that you won't do it again." And then with the greatest love, Hashem wants to forgive us. So if you think of Hashem as loving, not Hashem as angry and vengeful, and he's has a pitchfork in his hand and he's ready to, with a sword and lightning, to do who knows what, which is really a non-Jewish image, unfortunately. But Hashem's love for us is infinite. Then the Alter Rebbe says you can be sure, without a doubt, without even a doubt of a doubt, that the moment you ask for forgiveness, Hashem forgives you. In fact, whenever we daven Shemona Esrei, we say, "Slach lo, Hashem forgive us." Then we make a bracha, "Baruch Ata Hashem, I thank you, Hashem, for forgiving me." The Alter Rebbe said, "How could you thank Hashem for? How do you know He forgave you? Maybe He didn't." And in fact, the halacha is safek bracha v'hakel. If you have a doubt about a certain bracha, you're not supposed to make the bracha because you're pronouncing Hashem's name in vain. How could you make the bracha? "Thank you, Hashem, for forgiving me"? How do you know He forgave you? And so clearly, ein kan shum safek, there's no doubt. As soon as I say, "Slach lanu, Hashem, forgive me," machal lanu, Hashem, I know for sure that Hashem forgave me. I think Rabbi Yitzchak once gave this mashal that a father and a son were going for a walk, and they passed by the marketplace, and the son saw this apple, a delicious apple. His father didn't want to buy it for him. What did he do? He said, "Baruch Ata Hashem, with Hashem's name, Bari Pri Ha'etz." His father had no choice. He quickly bought the apple and had him bite into the apple. It shouldn't be a bracha in vain. So we say this bracha, it's not going to be a bracha in vain. But the Alter Rebbe says it's not a trick. We're so sure that Hashem forgives us that therefore we can make the bracha. So where's this leading to? Okay, we'll have to continue next week in Hashem. To be continued. Yes. So Ms. Nemi's not gonna be here this morning. So I'm gonna take both classes together for Mashiach Gula, and we'll talk a little bit about slichas and about the pigeon, the oil, things like that. What? Yeah, Rabbi Elazar will teach both levels.
Sorry?
Both levels have come to halacha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Shuli. Hi. Hi. She told me she didn't even look at me. Like I'm shaking. You use both of them at the same time? Yeah. But it did not do like another one of work. No, one of them.